Hey everybody, it's Andy Blanks once again with another teacher prep video for the Exchange Small Group Bible Study. Now, this is the third lesson. You should be rolling by now. I hope you're having great times of sharing and fellowship in your small group, and that your students are really learning something, and that you're learning something too. But I want to talk about this third exchange. This is the exchange of hate for love. Sort of a keystone exchange for Christ followers. And I think this is one of those key places where we see really the ways of God and the message of the gospel in such harsh conflict with the world. But it's just a really counter-cultural command of God's, right? And we're going to unpack that here. And your students are going to love it. It's going to be a really practical lesson for you. And it starts with why we need to make this exchange. Remember, that's kind of how we started every lesson. So it starts with why we need to make this exchange. And to sort of make that case, we go to Romans 1. And you're going to have your students read kind of a long passage here. But we really wanted them to really kind of get the feel of the heaviness of sort of sin and the progression of sin that Paul kind of talks about in Romans 1:18 all the way down through 31, 32. And really it's at the end of this passage where Paul really starts kind of unpacking this idea of how we're sort of so opposed to one another. How humankind, when we've been given over to sin, we've become such enemies with one another, and you see the opposite of love, right? So that's why we have to make this exchange, because our hearts have really been turned against each other because of sin. And so what does the Bible talk, how does the Bible talk about this exchange, or how does the Bible describe this exchange? And we're going to go to 1 John chapter 4, and look at where John talks about God demonstrating his love through sending Jesus. Plain and simple, right? It's not that we loved God, it's that he loved us. And he sent Jesus into this world sort of as that example of love, or that perfect messenger of God's love. And it's this idea that through that, we love each other and we love the world. So it's this idea that's what this exchange looks like. That Christ came down into this world of sin as love, as an exemplar of God's love. And this exchange comes, Jesus sort of fleshes this exchange out in John 13, where he says, he's talking to his disciples, and he says to them this incredible phrase. He basically says, you will be recognized, people will know you as my disciples by your love. Wow, what a cool thing, right? I mean, that is so cool that we will be recognized in the world as followers of Christ just because of our love for one another, our love for the world. And so there really is kind of that real key calling to making this exchange. And then, quite honestly, Jesus kind of comes back with how this exchange looks in our lives, with the truth that's kind of uncomfortable, right? I mean, it's in Luke 6, and Jesus says, hey, love your enemies, right? Anybody can love the people that are easy to love. Love those people that are hard to love. Oh man, that's no fun. It's not fun to love those people that are hard to love, right? And teenagers really struggle with this, especially with so many of the cliques that go on at school, and how teenagers use confidence and trust against one another to kind of prop themselves up at the expense of breaking somebody else down. And so your students have people in their lives that are hard to love. One of the activities in the small group plan, call them HTL, right? They're hard to love. Your students have those HTL people in their life. And what you need to try to call them to in this lesson is that Jesus doesn't give us an option. He says, love your enemies. Love your enemies. Plain and simple. And by that way, again, kind of tied back, we show the world that we're Christ's followers, that Christ has made such a huge impact in our life. It is not an easy exchange to make. It's not. We all deal with it. It's easier not to love those people. But when we make this exchange, again, it's such an incredible testimony to the world. So, again, I would just challenge you to put this in front of your students, and call them to this standard. You're going to do great. I hope your small group goes very, very well. I know it will. If you have any questions or any thoughts or anything like that, any way we can help you, give us a call or email us, and we'll see you next time for the last teacher prep video for Exchange.